You already know something is wrong. Not with the world, with you. You feel it in rooms where your presence dissolves the moment you stop speaking, in conversations where others lean forward for someone else's words but barely register yours, in the quiet realization that effort, honesty, and competence haven't bought you what you were promised. And the most disturbing part? You can sense that others are operating by rules you were never taught. They move without friction. They are deferred to. They are protected. They are chosen. Not because they are better, but because they are dangerous in ways you are not. This video is not about becoming confident. It is not about networking. It is not about success. It is about the part of you that was trained to stay harmless and how that part has been quietly deciding your fate. Because power is not something you acquire. It is something you stop being afraid of. Most people believe the world rewards virtue, that visibility comes from merit, that influence comes from being useful, agreeable, and good. This belief feels moral. It feels safe. It also keeps you small. Jung warned that what we refuse to see in ourselves does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes fate. You were taught to repress ambition, to distrust dominance, to equate restraint with character. So the parts of you that want control, leverage, and authority were buried alive. And what grows in the dark does not die. It waits. Machiavelli understood something modern people still resist. Human beings do not respond to virtue. They respond to structure, pressure, and perceived necessity. The world is not divided into good and bad people. It is divided into those who understand power and those who moralize their way out of it. If you are still waiting to be recognized, this is for you. If you are still confused why others rise faster with less effort, this is for you. If you sense there is a colder intelligence operating beneath social niceties, this is for you. But be warned, once you recognize the mechanics, you will no longer be able to hide behind innocence. The first truth is uncomfortable. You are not ignored because you lack value. You are ignored because you present no psychological consequence. Power does not move toward goodness. It moves away from risk. And right now, you are safe. Safe people are invisible. You were taught to be open, predictable, readable. You reveal your intentions early because you believe transparency builds trust. You share your struggles because you believe vulnerability creates connection. You signal your loyalty because you believe consistency earns security. In reality, you are advertising your leverage. A predictable person is not trustworthy. They are manageable. The moment someone understands what you want, they understand how to control you. This is why powerful people feel distant. They are not arrogant. They are protected. They learned early that desire is a liability when it leaks, so they became opaque. And opacity creates gravity. The first shadow you must integrate is this. Your need to be understood is costing you authority. People do not respect what they can fully read. They respect what resists interpretation. When you walk into a room, you should not be offering clarity. You should be creating questions, not through silence, through restraint. Machiavelli never advised honesty without strategy. He advised selective truth, timed for advantage. Your mistake has been performing sincerity for people who evaluate usefulness. The second truth cuts deeper. Powerful people are not impressed by effort. They are threatened by comparison. You were told to shine, to stand out, to demonstrate excellence. This advice was written for a fantasy world where hierarchies reward merit. In reality, hierarchies reward non-interference. When you display competence too early, you trigger insecurity. When you outperform without permission, you create resistance.
When you shine near someone whose identity depends on superiority, you become expendable. Jung would call this an ego wound. Machiavelli would call it a death sentence. The correct move is counterintuitive. You must lower your profile while increasing your influence. You allow others to receive credit while you shape outcomes. You let them feel central while you become essential. This is not submission, it is positioning. Power enters through the side door, not the spotlight. The third shadow is one you likely despise: self-interest. You have been trained to appeal to fairness, gratitude, morality. These are languages of the powerless. No one with responsibility responds to appeals that create obligation without return. Mercy drains energy. Utility multiplies it. When you ask for help, you are adding weight. When you solve a problem, you are removing it. Only one of these builds attachment. If you want access, stop explaining why you deserve it. Start identifying where pressure already exists. Every powerful person is constrained by something: time, reputation, rivals, blind spots. Your value is proportional to the relief you provide. Do not ask to be seen. Make your absence dangerous. Which brings us to scarcity. You are too available. You respond quickly. You say yes reflexively. You orbit other schedules. You believe proximity creates importance. It creates familiarity, and familiarity destroys leverage. Scarcity is not distance. It is selective presence. When you are there, you are focused, contained, useful, and then you withdraw. Not dramatically, not manipulatively, but with intent. Your absence should register, not as abandonment, as unfinished business. The mind obsesses over what it cannot close. This is not a trick, it is how attention works. Now we descend further, the mirror. People do not want to be challenged, they want to be confirmed. Even those who claim to value honesty crave validation of their self-image. Your opinions are irrelevant, your alignment is not. When someone speaks to you, they are revealing how they see the world. Your task is not to correct them, it is to enter their lens. Match pace, match language, match metaphors. This is not imitation, it is psychological attunement. When you reflect someone accurately, their nervous system relaxes, trust forms before thought. They feel recognized, and recognition is addictive. You do not bond over similarity of facts, you bond over similarity of perception. The shadow here is uncomfortable. To be influential, you must temporarily suspend your own worldview. Identity rigidity is a luxury. Adaptation is survival. Information is the next layer. Not information as data, information as advantage. Power isolates. The higher someone rises, the fewer honest signals reach them. They are surrounded by noise and flattery. If you become a source of calibrated truth, filtered, relevant, and discreet, you become indispensable. Not gossip, intelligence. Trends before they surface, risks before they escalate, shifts before they are acknowledged, but never expose the pipeline. Control is not about possession, it is about dependency. If the value you bring can be sourced elsewhere, you are temporary. If it can only come through you, you become structural. Then comes alignment through opposition. Shared enemies create accelerated bonding, not because of hatred, but because opposition clarifies identity. When you validate what someone resists, you validate who they believe they are. This creates loyalty faster than agreement, but it must be selective. Too much negativity signals instability. The bond forms when resistance feels justified. We see what others don't. This is not morality, it is tribal psychology. Next is fantasy. People do not live in reality, they live in narratives about themselves. the disciplined leader, the misunderstood genius, the reluctant authority. Your role is not to expose the gap between truth and story. Your role is to support the story while steering behavior. If you attack the fantasy, you become an enemy. If you stabilize it, you become protected. This is where many fail. They mistake honesty for courage. Honesty without timing is aggression. Now consider the machinery beneath the surface of human interaction. Every handshake, every compliment, every nod is calibrated for a reason, even if the participants are unaware of it. You think casual conversations are innocent. They are not. Every word carries weight. Each glance, pause, and inflection signals intent. The room is never neutral.
Silence is as revealing as speech. And yet, most people walk through life believing transparency equates to virtue. They assume sincerity is protection. They assume goodness is influence. These assumptions are their undoing. Imagine a king surrounded by loyal subjects, each vying for recognition, each performing obedience. The king does not need their loyalty because they offer it freely. What the king needs is leverage, control over forces that could destabilize his reign. He watches, not because he is paranoid, but because he understands that every action, however minor, forms a network of consequences. Now, you are in that room too. And like most, you operate openly, with predictable reactions, showing your cards before the game begins. But those with subtle intelligence do not play openly. They operate from hidden vectors. They know that perception is the only currency. They know that control exists not in commands, but in the architecture of expectation. When they speak, they craft belief. When they move, they trigger reaction. Their presence alone reorganizes the room. And what do? You attempt to belong. You attempt to shine. You attempt to be seen. The result? You are processed. Your energy is absorbed and neutralized. No consequence, no gravity, no leverage. To counter this, you must first recognize the hidden architecture of interaction. Every human is a system of needs, fears, and projections. You must map these systems before stepping in. Observe patterns, track inconsistencies, test assumptions. And when you act from position, not impulse. Build dependency subtly. Offer solutions, but frame them as aligned with existing desires. Present yourself not as a challenger, but as a stabilizer. Stabilization is seductive. Stabilization is invisible authority. You do not command overtly, you orchestrate subtly. You do not compete for attention, you manipulate the environment so attention seeks you. The part of you trained to stay harmless, the one who apologizes for taking space, the one who shrinks to avoid conflict, the one who sacrifices presence for comfort, must be confronted and integrated. It is not enough to bury it. It must be consciously acknowledged and redirected. When you claim this part of yourself, you become a node in the network of influence. Others' actions, once unpredictable, begin to align with your presence. Your absence creates tension. Your suggestions carry weight. You become structural. And here lies the paradox. The more dangerous you are psychologically, the safer you appear. The more autonomous you are, the more indispensable you become. Authority is not granted, it is absorbed through perception, timing, and containment. This is not manipulation in the petty sense, it is mastery over consequence. It is the recognition that all interaction is layered, and that influence does not require overt power, only subtle inevitability. By integrating these shadows, the need for validation, the compulsion to be liked, the fear of disruption, you reclaim internal authority. This is the fulcrum of strategic presence. Without it, visibility is meaningless. With it, invisibility becomes a tool. Every room becomes a system you can navigate. Every hierarchy a structure you can influence. Every interaction a potential pivot toward leverage. And you will realize the final truth. Most people are lost not because they lack skill, but because they never acknowledge the machinery operating in their own psyche. Once you understand this, everything you do becomes measured. Everything you do carries consequence, and the invisible walls around power begin to dissolve. Because here is the disarming moment, the sentence that stays. You are not failing because others are powerful. You are failing because you refuse to integrate the part of you that wants to be. Everything you condemn in others, calculation, restraint, dominance, lives in your shadow. And what you refuse to own will always control you from behind. The solution is not tactics, it is not confidence, it is not performance, it is internal authority. The ability to act without needing approval, to withdraw without guilt, to engage without overexposure. Jung called this individuation. Machiavelli called it sovereignty. You stop asking how you are perceived. You start deciding what role you occupy. You stop trying to be liked. You become necessary. You stop reacting. You architect environments. This requires confrontation with your fear of being judged, with your addiction to validation, with your moral attachment to weakness disguised as virtue. You do not become cruel, you become precise. And precision feels cold to those who rely on chaos. The final truth is this: power respects autonomy. The person who can walk away is the only one being negotiated with. If you need the outcome, you will be managed. If you can abandon it, you will be listened to. This is why cultivating your own base, your own skill, income, identity, direction is non-negotiable. Dependence poisons presence. Wholeness creates gravity. When you no longer need permission, your posture changes. Your voice slows. Your words carry weight. Not because you demand it, because you no longer seek it. Most people never cross this threshold. They remain talented, frustrated, and invisible. Not because the world is unfair, because they chose safety over integration. The world does not reward innocence. It responds to clarity. And clarity is dangerous. If you act, you will disturb your current life. If you don't, your current life will quietly erase you. Choose accordingly. Subscribe not for motivation, not for tips, not for guidance. Subscribe to signal the contract you make with yourself, to stop being a spectator, to start being the strategist.